Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Vor Saga, Book Something, the Vor Game, chapters 15 and 16. If you thought, like I did originally, that I was going to be finishing up the book this episode, I am sorry to disappoint you, but like I had said, we've had to cut down on the number of pages per chapter because I am a blabbermouth. So there's one chapter left, and I am dying because things seem pretty resolved by the end of this chapter. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Vicky for commissioning this episode, and Vicky is here in the chat. Hi, Vicky. Oh my God. M. says, you have the gift of gab, Natasha. It sounds better than blabbermouth. Yeah, and blabbermouth often isn't even meant to be that you talk too much, so much as like you can't keep a secret. So I wanted to kind of be like, that's not strictly true, but you know what? I can't keep a secret. I kind of can't. So I guess that's still true. Anyway, all right, let's back up here. I really want to start things off with this section on emphasizing to you all that I don't really understand what's happening here. I accept it. It's fine. But I feel like there was something else that I think it may have been when Miles like knocks that guy out and takes his clothes and stuff, where I was just like, I don't really get it. And you all in the chat were also kind of like, yeah, I don't either. And that made me feel better. This same energy, I accept this. I believe that were somebody to explain this to me, all of it would hang together in such a way. But the truth is, folks, I don't really need to know. Like, let's be honest. We're not really in this for, like, the strategic setup of the planets and like, this is all necessary for the story to work, but I don't care about it. Does that make sense? So I am glad that it seems to make sense. But honestly, even if it didn't, I wouldn't notice. I'll just be honest with y'all. I wouldn't. So let's start off with chapter 15. This is so funny to me. So Miles is super tired. He goes back to Oser's cabin, has something to eat, and he's just sort of like looking things over to see what he's got for equipment, who's still here that he knows, yada, yada, yada. We get a description of a variety of different weapons and the ways that things have advanced in that arena, which, again, I don't really feel like I need to know, but it's good that it's there for the world building, I suppose. And that goes on for a little while. But the cabin buzzer blatted is a phrase that gets said a couple times in these chapters, and I just want to acknowledge the word blatted for a sound effect as being actually quite effective. I like it. So this is Baz Jessic coming to see him. And evidently, Baz is feeling very contrite that he was left in command, that he was left with the expectation of keeping the Dendari fleet going in the way it was left. And then now his boss is back, and he's a bit shamefaced at the fact that he basically got like demoted and ousted, and all of the work that Miles had put into setting things in order has gone to waste in his eyes. Like, he really feels that he has let his boss down, and he tries to tender his resignation. And Miles is just like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Let's just cut to the chase here. No. And he says, in the first place, liege sworn armsman can't resign. In the second place, where am I going to get a competent fleet engineer on 2 hours' notice? And in the third place, I need a witness to clear my name if things go wrong. And then he clarifies, wronger. Oh, boy. So he brings him up to speed on everything. And Baz is like, but wait, if we're fucking around here, we could get the Emperor killed. Whereas if you just let Cavilo have him, she needs him alive and she'll bring him to Barrayar and sort of rescue him weirdly, from herself. Maybe we should just let that play out. And Miles is like, I hear what you're saying, and that is sort of part of the plan. But I just don't know where Gregor's mind is at. And he also mentions, like, the Seed Gandans and the appearances of things. That how much of this could just be misinterpreted by people. And, the fact that the Cetagandans will be in a position where they could take advantage, even if this isn't how they planned things to go. And they begin looking into all of the tech specs on this when they get interrupted. And it is Ungari and Overholt. I absolutely died over this. So he first tells Baz, you probably should make tracks, bud, because these guys, while technically not here for you, and technically not even of the department that would make your life hard, they still could. And I just think it'd be easier for all of us if you got the fuck out of the way. But you guys, tell me that you don't fucking get what I'm saying here. He is so delighted that there are going to be people in charge showing up to take over this situation. It's so sad. This is so understandable and relatable to me. He really is thinking that this is going, he can sort of step back and let these men take over. And then it turns out that they have no interest in letting this go to plan. That they are really blaming Gregor being missing on Miles in a way that I was just like, you need to just step back for a moment and hear yourselves, you guys. And they're also not letting Miles talk. But really, the thing here, I just relate to this so much, is the sentiment of, I don't want this responsibility. Thank God you're here. I don't have to do it. And then realizing, oh, wow, you are bad at this. I have to do it anyway. I really thought I was going to get a break. I really thought you turned up and that I could just turn over in bed and nap and not have to worry about it. And now I have to not only continue dealing with this shit storm that I have on my hands already, but now I have to cope with you and your immature response to the situation, because they grip Miles up. And I was just like, are you not reading the energy of the room here, guys? Why are you behaving this way? They're just leaping to so many terrible conclusions and assumptions. And I really feel like, all things considered, Miles has done an amazing job with what he has been given to work with here. But that whole vibe of just, I would really rather not, but if I don't, who will? Oh, if that isn't how I feel every goddamn day. I swear, it is so exhausting. It sucks. So, also the fact that he tells Chodak to wait outside, and I was just like, he's so certain that he doesn't need to worry about it, and then he's very quickly like, oh shit, I should have kept him here. So yeah, he lifts him off the ground on Gari and calls him an idiot and says, what the hell kind of game have you been up to? We know you found the Emperor, then you both vanished. And Miles says, didn't you ask Elena? I thought you would. And I thought it was sort of interesting that he didn't ask Elena. And I'm trying to determine why it might be that he didn't. There's, in my opinion, 3 options here. A, he didn't think of it, which is real bad. I don't like that option at all, because that is implying an even higher level of incompetence than I was really wanting to work with originally. Then there is because she's a woman, which I don't like that either, but it would be in line with what we know about Barry Yarn attitudes towards women, especially a woman who's sort of like gone off and done her own thing and had a father like Bothari, who people already kind of were side-eyeing all the time. Or he doesn't trust Elena, is C. And I genuinely don't feel like, I mean, if you don't trust her, I guess that's part and parcel with B. The misogyny thing is part of the, like, not trusting. But when I say not trust, I'm really thinking more in terms of her, like, allegiances at this point. And because Miles brings up the fact that she is, like, a sworn, I'm trying to find the word here. But yeah, she's a liege woman, right? So her allegiance shouldn't be in question. It's just potentially maybe that they think that it is in question after all this time, that Miles hasn't been around her. Who knows? I'm not aware of. Also, maybe they don't want to bring Elena into this if she doesn't already know that the Emperor is out there sort of rattling around on his own. There's so many, like, ways that this could go, but honestly, you guys, the fact that this man never really answers the question, I found to be a red flag. It almost made me kind of go, I hope that you're not, like, you know, I don't really think this, I'll be honest. I don't really think this, but it did make me kind of stop and be like, I hope that you're not sort of part of a cover-up here or something, Ungari. So Overholt didn't recognize the Emperor at first in the contract slave records. The sergeant hadn't been on the need-to-know list about his disappearance. A faint, irate look passed over the sergeant's face, as if in memory of great injustices. It wasn't until he'd made contact with me here, we dead-ended, and we retraced all the steps in hopes of finding some clue about you we'd overlooked, that I identified the missing contract slave as Emperor Gregor. Days lost. I was sure you'd make contact with Elena, Bothari Jessic. Ungari shot him a flat-lipped glare, but did not otherwise offer explanation for this gaffe. And later on, Miles again says something about, like, if you do such and such, it'll be an even worse fuck-up than not contacting Elena, which I kind of howled over the fact that Miles decided to rub that man's face in it again. I'm not mad at it. Do I think it was the best approach when this man is already clearly very irate? Maybe not, but honestly, I couldn't help but, like, relish it, because fuck these guys, like, genuinely. So yeah, he is trying to, like, explain to them about the situation, and Ungari is saying, like, Vervain holds the Emperor, and he's like, no, it's not Vervain, it's Cavilo, it's a whole different thing than what it looks like. This isn't political. She is just trying to get something for herself. And he brings up the Cetagandin invasion, and they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you don't know about that. Well, I'm sure Ilian does. I mean, somebody's got to be keeping track of this. And I'm like, oh, baby, I don't think so. Like, I'm sure Ilian is keeping track of things, but this is something that you have been able to, like, devote 100% of your attention to. And so you've, like, figured it out. But Ilian is concerned with Gregor being missing, and I'm not sure he has given thought to what's happening here in the way you have, because he doesn't know the connection with Gregor. If Ilian were in a vacuum to see the situation, he would piece together, I'm sure, what was really happening here. But he's distracted. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had not figured any of this out at all. So he says, do you still have that blank mercenary contract credit shit Ilian gave you? I need it. You, mister, are going nowhere but to our safe house in Aslan Station, where you will wait quietly, very quietly, until Ilian's reinforcements arrive to take you off my hands. Miles politely ignored this impractical outburst. Oh my god, you guys, that fucking killed me. So he brings up, like, do you have any data I could use? And he's like, well, I have this, this, and that. And Miles is like, I know all that already. Jesus Christ, what's the point of you? He's so annoyed. Ungari snapped, Overholt, grab him. Miles hit the alarm on his comm console desk as Overholt swooped down on him. He dodged around his station chair, knocking it loose from its clamps as Overholt missed his first grab. The cabin door hissed open. Chodak and his 2 guards pelted through, followed by Elena. Overholt, chasing Miles around the end of the comm console desk, skidded straight into Chodak's stunner fire. Overholt dropped with a massive thud. Miles winced. Ungari lurched to his feet and stopped, bracketed by the aim of 4 Dendari stunners. Miles felt like bursting into tears. Or possibly cackles. Neither would be useful. He gained control of his breath and voice. This is so embarrassing, you guys. Oh my god. Like, can you imagine if there is video footage of this? You could play this with the Benny Hill music over it. Like, truly, this is... Oh my god, Miles, how is it that you make all of these grown men look like such idiots? It's just absolutely inevitable. Every time! God, no wonder so many of them fucking hate him. So they get put in the brig, and Miles is like, I wish I could fast Penta Ungari, but doubtless Ungari has probably been implanted with that thing that causes a reaction that kills him immediately so that he can't be questioned. So I love Elena. Dear God, Miles. Metsov, Oser, Ungari, all in a row? You sure are hard on your commanding officers. What are you going to do when the time comes to let them all out? Miles shook his head mutely. I don't know. My lord. So, we go back to him sort of like trying to figure out what his next move is going to be. And he decides to sort of let things unfurl naturally. Suppose Cavilo hadn't already transmitted her go code to the Cetagandans. The sudden movement of the Dendari fleet might well spook her into aborting the plot. Fine, Miles decided. In that case, he would have stopped the Cetagandan invasion without a shot being fired. A perfect war of maneuver by Admiral Errol Vorkosigan's own definition. Of course, I'll have political egg on my face and a lynch mob after me from 3 sides, but Tao will understand. I hope. You guys, this whole thing. So, he goes and sleeps. It has been 12 hours by the time he is reawakened. And let's see, we're continuing to monitor, record, and track any outbound traffic. What's the transmission time lag from us to them at the present? 36 minutes, sir. Very well. Pipe the message down here. He leaned his elbows on Oser's comm console and studied the vid. A high-ranking Vervani officer appeared over the plate and demanded an explanation for the Oser and Dendari fleet's movements. He sounded a lot like the Aslanders. No sign of Cavilo. Miles keyed the comm officer. Transmit back that their important message was hopelessly garbled by static and a malfunction in RD Scrambler. Urgently request a repeat with amplification. Which he gets, and this time it's Cavilo. So she's like, explain yourselves at once or we will deal with you. And he's like, perfect. So what he does is he's like, this is for your eyes only, Cavilo, but he makes sure to transmit it in such a way that it absolutely will not be eyes only. It will be many eyes that see this before she sees it. And yet, he still won't be technically contacting the Baryarans, so he's keeping up his end of things. I have accomplished my mission precisely as you ordered. I remind you of the reward you promised me for my success. What are your next instructions? Naismith out. So, he and Tung were deeply engrossed in the tactical computer display in the Triumph's tactic rooms, running projected wormhole scenarios when the comm officer paged again. Changes at the Vervain station, sir. All outgoing commercial ship traffic has been halted. Incoming are being denied permission to dock. Encoded transmissions on all military channels have just about tripled, and 4 large warships just jumped. Into the hub or out to Vervain? Out to Vervain, sir. Continue to keep us advised. I want to keep tabs on the rumors as they start to fly. Tung keyed up what was laughingly called the real-time tactics display, a colorful schematic as the comm officer shunted the new data. He studied the identity of the 4 departing warships. It's starting, he said grimly. You called it. You don't think it's something we're causing? Not those 4 ships. They wouldn't have moved off station if they weren't badly wanted elsewhere. Better you get your ass over to... That is, transfer your flag to the Ariel, son. The Ariel's tack room was manned now by a mere skeleton crew. Miles, Elena as his personal communications officer, Artie Mayhew for all other systems. Inner circle all, in anticipation of this next most private conversation. So, they take a look at Vervain Station, and the Dendari were now barely 1,000,000 kilometers out, a little more than 3 light seconds. The rate of closure was slowing as the little fleet, fully 2 hours ahead of the slower ships of the main Dendari fleet, decelerated. They're sure stirred up now, Elena commented. They're reiterating their demands that we communicate. But still not launching a counterattack. I'm glad they realize where the true danger lies. All right, tell them we've got our comm problems straightened out, finally. But again say, I will only speak to the Commander Cavilo. So, this conversation, it's very fun. I really, really enjoy this a lot. I love that he says, come, love, come to me. And Elena's like, your sweetheart is about to come through Monitor 3. Later on, he's like, oh, I hate that woman. Like, way later. And everybody's like, do you? Oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I'm not totally believable, Miles, to be honest. I think you do kind of admire her and like her in a weird way. So, this is such a great combo because basically, she tries to be like, get the fuck out of my way. I'm going to do what I got to do and I have your emperor and I'll kill him. And Miles is like, okay, here's the thing. I guess you didn't do your research. Because if you did, you would know I get to be emperor if he dies, probably. And she's like, wait, what? They said that he didn't have an heir. What do you mean? And Miles is like, oh, he doesn't. Like, not a blood heir. But the way that shit works, yeah. And what you'd have to do if he dies is seduce my dad, which, and he says he is immune to women, which later Elena phrases as implying homosexuality. I'll be honest, guys, I didn't realize that was the implication. I very much thought it was just like, he's so into my mom, he doesn't even see other ladies. But then I was like, oh, I guess that's sort of naive. And also my dad isn't going to live forever. Like, he's on the older side already. So, I'm just wondering, are you totally married, LOL, to the idea of it being Gregor because you could marry a different emperor, potentially, if shit went a certain way? I'd have no problem. But if not, I'll become emperor anyway, and then I'll just kill you. So probably you should have figured this out a little beforehand, because you're threatening me with something that actually would work out pretty well for me. And she seems so taken off guard by this. It's like a little humiliating, clearly. And you guys, this is just so funny to me. The way that he sets this up, and I was so worried because, you know, the way that a more poorly written series would work would be that Miles tells her all of this stuff, and then she records it and she plays it for Gregor, who immediately believes what Miles is saying because it's all technically correct, and is just like, I can't believe you would betray me like this. And then he decides that he is going to throw in with Cavilo. But we don't get that because this is well written. So instead, Gregor, who knows what's happening instantly, is just like, oh, baby, I know that you're telling me this stuff, like you're playing this recording for me, like to show me the shocking betrayal. But I saw this coming. He's a fucked up mutant with a crazy little ferret brain that just spins wildly out of control if he's not medicated. And I'm sure he thinks that all of this could happen. But Barriar is never going to let his weird body sit on the throne. That's not going to be allowed at all. So, like, what he's telling you, he's not lying. He thinks it's true. But trust me, this is not happening. You do not need to worry about it. And it is so hilarious to me because he is saying all of this, and, like, in the background, Elena is losing her mind and, like, literally has fallen on the floor because she is trying so hard to, like, keep her hysterical laughter from being audible to them. And she's just, like, jamming her sleeve in her mouth because she's basically got the two of them both behaving like the most cold-blooded maniacs. You know, Miles is genuinely scary, she calls him later, and being like, yeah, you know, kill the Emperor, and then I'll kill my dad, whatever, no problem. And then Gregor comes out here and is just like, oh yes, well, Miles in his deformed state lives in a castle where he rubs his hands together and plots my downfall. Like, the both of them are just so ridiculous, but they're playing it just believable enough for her, and Elena is clearly, like, very entertained, and it is just so fucking funny. I love it so much. Oh my god. Your ships may escort us to safety, where clearly we must confer further. I will transport you to safety, where we will confer immediately. So, yeah, damn, Elena said in a hushed voice, if I didn't know you, I'd think you were Mad Yuri's understudy. And she, you connived to assassinate Gregor, to cuckold him, to accuse your father of homosexuality, to suggest a patricidal plot against him, and league yourself with Cavilo. Was I convincing? You were scary. Good. It's mind to mind between Cavilo and me before it ever becomes ship to ship. She's a compulsive plotter. If I can smoke her, wind her in with words, with what ifs. So, like I said, then Gregor comes up. I love when he says, I trust him no further than I can throw him. And he thinks, thanks, Gregor. I'll remember that line. And eventually he's just like, you know, I know that you want to get rid of the Vorkosigans, but Barriar accepts them as, like, a ruling family, and I'd rather work with them if I can. And it's not like he can have children. He, like, does this whole mutant thing again, even though we know this isn't correct. So he's talking about a bloodline that he can't ever have. So then we go to 16. Gregor stepped through. Miles was unsurprised to see that Cavilo had not provided the Emperor with space armor. And what he does I love the first thing when she steps through. She's like, so what's the trick? And they just blow up the connection to her escape ship. Instantly, like, just marooning her on this ship. And then, I say marooning, you know what I'm trapping. And then they're in the room with her, and before she can say it, Miles yells, "Deactivate your weapons and freeze or I'll blow Gregor to atoms." Body language was a wonderful thing. It was amazing how much expression could come through the blank shining surface of space armor. The littlest armored figure stood open-handed, stunned, bereft of words, bereft for precious seconds of reactions, because, of course, Miles had just stolen her opening line. "Now what do you have to say for yourself, love?" It was a desperate ploy. Miles had judged the hostage problem logically insoluble. Therefore, clearly, the only thing to do was make it Cavilo's problem instead of his own. Genius, truly. Just being like, I can't deal with a hostage. I don't want to figure this out, so I'm going to let her fucking figure it out. Amazing. Amazing. So, "You said he was safe," Cavilo hissed to Gregor. "His meds must be further off dose than I thought," Gregor replied, looking anxious. "No, watch. He's bluffing. I'll prove it." So he walks straight towards Elena's plasma cannon. And it's such a dramatic moment that Cavilo doesn't notice he has passed through the doorway. And so they just hit a button and they lock her out. And now they have Gregor. And she's got nothing. Cavilo, sweetie, I know you're better than this. What are you doing? I mean, that is just inexcusable that you just got so entranced at him slowly walking forward that you fucking lost track of the fact that he was now out of reach. Like, girl, please. And later on, we find out that they have locked up her space armor so that it doesn't move, and she's just trapped in it, which that is so much more embarrassing. Like, it's already terrible to be taken prisoner. The whole thing is very humiliating, but the fact that you can be made a prisoner in your armor, the very thing that was meant to protect you, turns into the way you are kept immobile. That is just absolutely humiliating. I just, this woman really, really thought she was about to pull some shit. She was not prepared. Oof. So, Miles motioned Gregor along the corridor, removing him as swiftly as possible from the region of potential messiness. "I'll fill you in. You have some decisions to make." My biggest worry, till we spoke face to face, was that Cavilo really had done what she thought she had. She had the same hungry smile Vor used to get, and a dozen lesser cannibals since. I can smell a power-hungry flatterer at 1,000 meters now. So delightful. I really thought I could trust Gregor. There was a tiny bit of me that was sort of like, is he? But I just never really thought. And then he says, well, you rescued yourself. She'd have taken you all the way home, even if I hadn't come along. And Gregor says it was easy. All that was required was that I have no personal honor at all. Gregor's eyes, Miles realized, were deathly, devoid of triumph. "You can't cheat an honest man," said Miles uncertainly, which, by the way, is just nonsense, but sure. "What would you have done if she'd got you home?" "Depends. If she'd managed to get you killed, I suppose I'd have her executed. This is better. Maybe there's some way to give her a fair chance." "I'd be very careful about giving Cavilo any kind of chance at all if I were you, even with tongs. Does she deserve it? Do you realize what's going on? How many she's betrayed?" "In part. And yet What? Gregor's tone was so low as to be nearly inaudible. I wish she had been real. Oh, that was so heartbreaking, you guys. That was so sad. And I mean, like, who is he supposed to meet? How is this supposed... This is something I think about all the time with, like, celebrity in general. Everybody that is around you is aware that you have access to money and power and access in general. How do you ever know what somebody's real motivations are? How do you ever know who your friends really are? Like, I'm sure there comes a point where you have that trust with some people, but I can't imagine trying to court to establish somebody that you're going to, like, you know, carry on your line. And you have to go into it knowing that they are all aware that you are the emperor and that their families desperately want them to nab you. So they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. And you can't believe a word they say, really, in the end. Even, like, Cavilo is certainly full of shit, for sure. But at least she's, like, a free agent. She's not even linked with any of the families. She isn't, like... There's almost an honesty to what she's doing. I know that's a weird way to say, and it's not, like, really true, but you get what I'm saying? I don't know. I could understand. I really can. Gregor. So... he updates Gregor on everything. Now, sire, the decision lands on you. Fight or flight. I can detach the area from the Dendari right now to run you home, with little loss to this hot and dirty wormhole fight. No. And he says, do you wish to be commander-in-chief of this mess? Gregor smiled softly. What a temptation, but don't you think there's a certain... hubris in undertaking field leadership without a prior apprenticeship in field followership? Miles reddened slightly. I bet he did. He's being called out. I can't help but feel Gregor knows he's calling Miles out, right? He's aware. Like, that was on purpose. He's not just kind of putting his foot in his mouth there. He fully knows what he's saying. And Miles says, I face a similar dilemma. You've met the solution. His name's Kai Tung. We'll be conferring with him when we transfer back to the Triumph later. So eventually he's like, I need you to legitimize the Dendari as a Barrayarn force. If you say it, it's real. And if you can create a treaty between Barrayar and Vervain, you know, like, this is where your strength and value lies for us right now, is diplomatically. Sorry. Fighting-wise, no. But this stuff, yes. And Gregor is just bummed because, again, he just wants to be able to, like, do something that's more proactive in a physical way that has more agency behind it, you know? And I really do sympathize. Like, this sort of weird neutering that he has despite his alleged power must be so fucking annoying. And Miles, like, when he's kind of when Gregor's lamenting this, Miles says, if in your judgment the best and most vital service you can give everyone else risking their lives here is a minor field officer, I will of course support you to the best of my ability. Ouch, murmured Gregor. You can turn a phrase like a knife, you know? I really do want to sit and analyze that sentence. If, in your judgment, which already, major disclaimer, the best and most vital service you can give everyone else risking their lives here, sir, just reminding you of that part, is as a minor field officer, I will, of course, support you to the best of my ability. there are so many little caveats and reminders and just pointed, like, that is a hell of a sentence. It really is. God damn. Ugh. So, Gregor agrees to this. And then he says, all right, and then Randall's Rangers, I assume they are in considerable disarray. Their second in command has vanished. Their commander has deserted. And let's see, he says, how was it the Vervani let her make an exit, by the way? She told them she was going out to confer with you, implied she'd somehow added you to her forces. She was going to jump her fast courier to the hot side immediately thereafter, supposedly. She may have inadvertently paved our way. Is she denying involvement with the Cetagandans? I don't think the Vervani have caught on yet about the Rangers opening their door to the Cetagandans. At the time we left the Vervain station, they were still putting the Rangers' failures to defend the Cetagandan side jump down to incompetence. You realize, Gregor, you did this. Sabotage the Cetagandan invasion single-handedly? Oh, breathed Gregor. It took both hands. Guys, I really want to, like, take a moment and imagine if we were to put this on film. I would love to have all of these, like, really stressful, terrible moments with Miles, like, you know, from being stuck in the brig initially with the little power bars for his only food, alone and, like, grimy. I want that intercut with Gregor being wined and dined and then getting to fuck his brains out. And then back to Miles, who's just pacing and bored. And then back to Gregor, who's having some champagne and maybe watching a movie and then getting to fuck again. And then back to Miles, who's being put into a fucking bod pod and shot across space. And then back to Gregor, who's having some steak and wine and relaxing on, like, a bed with pillows on it. And then back to Miles, who's being, like, grabbed by the scruff of the neck. Like, they're all so worried about Gregor, and, like, it's valid. It really is. It's valid. But clearly, Gregor was just fine. Oh my God. Oh, I love it so much. So this is when they bring Cavilo in, who is, like I said, locked up in her fucking super suit and can't move. And so Miles is like, so Gregor, not me, thinks you should get another chance. And I think the best thing to do with you is to just give you over to the Cetagandans. It's going to be a little tidbit. He says a treaty tidbit. And I like that. I think that's just meant to be a play on words. Like, it's a treat. That's also a treaty between nations. A treaty tidbit that will cost us nothing and help them and help turn them up sweet. I imagine they'll be looking for you, don't you? And she gets very anxious here. But Gregor says, but if you do as we ask, I'll grant you safe passage out of the Hagen hub via Barrier when this is over, together with any surviving remnant of your forces that will still follow you. It will give you a 2-month head start on the Cetagandan vengeance for this debacle. In fact, put in Miles, if you play your part, you could even come out of this a heroine. What fun! Gregor's glower at him was not entirely feigned. These two. What a wacky duo. So, he's like, yeah, that's the deal. Either you go to the Cetagandans, or you get a star far, far away, probably being watched for the rest of your life, or his life, by Ilian. So then she yields. You have your deal, but you will learn, little man. You're riding high today, but time will bring you down. I'd say just wait 20 years, but I doubt you're going to live that long. Time will teach you how much nothing your loyalties will buy you. The day they finally grind you up and spit you out, I'm just sorry I won't be there to watch, because you're going to be hamburger. Miles called the soldiers back in. Take her away. It was almost a plea. So this is when he says that woman makes me cold, and Gregor says, but you get along. You seem to think alike. And Miles is like, come on, Elena? And she's like, I mean, yeah, like, you're both very twisty. If you were a different kind of crazy, you can plot like that. I feel like you enjoyed it a little bit. Thank you, I think. He hunched his shoulders. Was it true? Could that be himself in 20 years, sick with cynicism and unvented rage? A shelled self, thrilled only by mastery, power games, control, armor plate, with a wounded beast inside? Yes. Miles. Yes. Sir, I just... Correct. I know that's bleak, but I could see it quite easily. So, oh God. Eventually, we have to send Gregor off. Miles is trying to micromanage him until Gregor is like, do you want to fucking do it instead? And Miles has to pipe down. He summons Ungari and Overholt. And at first, they start to, like, go in on him again until they noticed that Gregor was there. He's like, you mutinous little mutant, is what Ungari says to him. And I was just like, my God, sir, you really... He's right there. Can you please just pause long enough to, like, take in the room? Jesus. My apologies, Captain, said Miles, for my high-handed treatment of you and Sergeant Overholt, but I judged my plan for retrieving Gregor too... delicate for your nerves. I thought I'd better take responsibility. You were happier not watching, really, and I was happier not having my elbow jogged. You know, like, again, Miles is just like, oh, I'm so glad the cavalry's here. And then he's like, this cavalry is garbage. Are those even horses? I feel like those are those things that are on carousels. What? No. Get them out of here. So, finally, Ungari is like, well, I think you should know that your plan has failed because you're not supposed to even be doing all of this. And Miles is like, oh, okay, fine. You rescued the Emperor. Congratulations. He's just very snotty about it, which it has every right to be, in my opinion. So Gregor says, I'm attaching you and Sergeant Overholt to my person until we make contact with our reinforcements. I may also require courier duties of you. Before we leave the Triumph, please share any pertinent intelligence you may possess with the Dendari Ops. They are now my imperial, most obedient servants, suggested Miles under his breath. Forces, Gregor concluded. So... this whole thing eventually is wrapped up. Ungari, like, the fact that they are changing up what's going to happen and everybody's been given these huge promotions, they're just sort of in a whirl for a moment. And when Ungari realizes that Miles is still going to be free and out here just doing stuff, he's like, are you fucking for real? No, we cannot do that. And Miles... I am sorry, sir, said Miles to Ungari, that I cannot obey you. But Miles left that unsaid. He has not learned subordination. Is it time to just give up on that? I feel like maybe it is. I feel like maybe we just should let that dream die. I just kind of, like, if anything, he is willing in a way to be subordinate to Tongue. Just for this particular situation and exercise, I understand why he is demanding that he be in command. But I feel like at least he respects Tongue enough to see I can learn things from you. But it seems like the people in charge of Miles have to be pretty fucking exceptional for him to be willing to listen to anything they say. And I just can't be mad at him for that. I really can't. Like, how many times does this kid have to prove himself a fucking genius before we really believe it, you know? Captain Angari, I officially detach Ensign Verkosigan as our Dendari liaison on my personal responsibility, which should be sufficient even for you. It's not me that it has to be sufficient for, sire. For Barriar's best interests, then. A sufficient argument even for Simon. Let us go, Captain. So, the Triumph's tactics room was alive with activity. The trick was to pick out what was important and never ever to forget that the map was not the territory. His job here, Miles reminded himself, was not to command, it was to watch Tongue command and learn how he did it, his alternate modes of thinking to Barriaran Academy standard. Miles' only legitimate point of overrule might come if some external political or strategic need took precedence over internal tactical logic. Miles prayed that event would not arise because a shorter and uglier name for it was betraying your troops. He bethought of the Jate back at the academy. Rule 1. Only overrule the tactical computer if you know something it doesn't. Rule 2. The TAC comp always knows more than you. Yeah, love it. So, I'm going to be honest, guys. I'm jumping past a lot of this. I don't really need to make sense of any of this tactical shit. The thing that we have got to jump over to is when they get the notification that the brig is just open and everybody has gotten out, which is bonkers. I mean, how did this happen? How did this happen? I love Tongue saying this wouldn't have happened in my day. It's a real Metsov thing to say. So, okay, boomer sort of moment. Austin, did you get the word on Oser? Austin's irritated face appeared. Yeah, we're working on it. Order extra commando guards to the tactics room, engineering, and your own bridge. This is a real bad time for interruptions down there. Tell me. We can see Seta bastards coming. Austin punched off. Miles began monitoring internal security channels, pausing only to note the arrival of well-armed guards in the corridor. Oser had clearly had help in his escape, some loyal Oseran officer or officers, which made Miles wonder in turn about the security of the security guards. And would Oser try to combine with Metsov and Cavilo? A couple Dendari imprisoned for disciplinary infractions were found wandering the corridors and returned to the brig. Another came back on his own. A suspected spy was cornered in a storeroom. No sign yet of the truly dangerous. And then they see a cargo shuttle breaking away from the Triumph. And they're assuming Oser is on this. Maybe? Like, the question about whether he would link up with Metsov and Cavilo is very interesting because they all have this hatred for Miles, but Oser's going to consider himself way above Metsov and Cavilo. Like, I don't see him being able to lower himself to collaborating with them. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like they're not together. I wouldn't be surprised if Oser stayed and that's Cavilo and Metsov leaving. I don't know. Like, the thing is, these books, if this were a different type of series, I would say that's Metsov and Cavilo leaving, and we'll see them again at some point, like in the series. There'll be these like repeating threads. But the way these have been written so far, there has never really been a baddie that has remained by the end of the book. We always deal with the book's baddie within the book. It's not drawn out. I don't know. And Miles finds fire control and says, do not open fire on that shuttle. Came the reply, yes, sir, do not open fire. Why did Miles get the subliminal impression that Tech hadn't been planning to open fire in the first place? Clearly a well-coordinated escape. The witch hunt later was going to be nasty. Oh boy, yeah. Like, either this guy fully was letting them escape, or it didn't occur to him that this was an escape, but I don't think so. I think they had to have been in on it, right? Patch me through to that shuttle. I'll try, sir, but they're not answering. How many aboard? Several, but we're not sure exactly. Patch me through. They've got to listen even if they won't reply. Admiral Oser, turn your shuttle around and come back to the Triumph. It's too dangerous out there. You're running headlong into a fire zone. Return and I will personally guarantee your safety. Tongue was looking down over Miles' shoulder. He's trying to make it to the Peregrine. Damn it, if that ship pulls out, our defensive array will collapse. Surely not. I thought we put the Peregrine in the reserve area precisely because we doubted its reliability. Yes, but if the Peregrine pulls out, I can name 3 other captain owners who will follow it. And if 4 ships pull out, the Rangers will break despite their Vervani commanders and will be cooked. All right, I see. I don't think he's going to make it. Admiral Oser, can you read me? Yikes! Tongue returned to his seat, absorbed in the Cetagandans once again. 4 Cetagandan ships were combining against the edge of the Dendari formation, while another attempted to penetrate the center, clearly trying to close the range for a lance attack. Casually in passing, a Cetagandan plasma gunner from it picked off the stray shuttle. Just bright sparks. He didn't know the Cetagandans were making their attack till his stolen shuttle cleared the Triumph. Good planning, rotten timing. Oh, and I don't know. Maybe there's nobody on it. They say there's 7 people on it. How do they know there's 7 people? Is there a way to fake that? I don't know. That feels like so convenient to be like, oh yeah, they tried to get away and now they're all dead. Like, I don't know. So, hours continue to pass. The reinforcements are coming on from the Cetagandan forces. And then eventually there's this point where Tongue is looking at the scanners and is just like, wait, what the fuck is that? Something huge and temporarily indecipherable appeared in the throat of the wormhole and began instantly to accelerate. It's too big to be that fast. It's too fast to be that big. It's the Prince Serg. Our Barryaran Imperial reinforcements have just arrived. Did I not promise you? Tongue swore horribly in pure aesthetic admiration. Guys, I love this so much. Later on, somebody says, surrender in the name of the Hagen Alliance Navy, Emperor Gregor Varbara and Admiral Count Ero Vor Kosigan, joint commanders. Tongue inhaled alarmingly and bellowed with delight. Ero Vor Kosigan? Here? Hot damn! How'd they lure him out of retirement? Maybe I'll get to meet him. I'll see what I can arrange, Miles promised. If you can arrange that, son. With an effort, Tongue pulled his mind away from his beloved hobby of studying military history and back to his admittedly closely related job of making it. You guys, I love Tongue being a fanboy. When he finds out what is he going to think when he finds out that Miles is a Vorkosigan? I bet he's going to be like, oh, I should have fucking figured that out. I should have known that. I bet he's going to be like annoyed with himself. Him and Errol are going to be buds, right? Like, they just have to. How are these guys not going to get along? They would definitely be the types to, like, go get a beer and just never stop talking. And it'd be like 2 a.m. and they're drunk and they're, like, psyched up on their own stories of, not their own stories, like, personal stories, but, like, recounting history. I could see very much the two of them just bonding over that. And also the fact that they both, like, you know, the relationship that Tongue has with Miles is fatherly in a way. Like, in a way. I really want that. I really do. Like, a surprisingly intense amount. So, okay. The Cetaganon ships were breaking, first in panicked singles and then in more coordinated groups, trying to organize a properly covered retreat. The Prince Serg and its support group did not waste a millisecond, but followed up instantly, attacking and disordering attempted self-covering arrays of enemy ships, worrying the resulting stragglers. In the ensuing hours, the retreat became a true rout when the Vervani ships protecting their high planetary orbitals, encouraged at last, broke orbit and joined the attack. The Vervani reserve was merciless in the terror for their homes the Cetaganons had instilled in them. The mopping up in detail, the appalling damage control problems, the personnel rescues were so absorbing that it took Miles those several hours to gradually realize the war was over for the Dindari fleet. They had done their job. So that's the ending of chapter 16. So one more chapter and the book is over. Really, really curious where we're going, because I saw that the final chapter of this on the audiobook is like almost an hour long. So there's still a fair amount to happen. Very, very interesting. All right, so I'm over time just a bit, but I feel like pulling back on this was a good call. I'm really, really enjoying this so far. So thank you, Vicky, for commissioning this episode. I'm sorry, guys, that all of y'all in the chat, like, I had to stay on point with getting through the actual content because otherwise I get lost in the sauce. But, so I wasn't able to interact a lot, but appreciate you all nevertheless. And yeah, I will be seeing y'all next week. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.